Let's come back to something you said earlier, that the way the protests have unfolded is counterproductive. The question really is what to do about this. One of the criticisms that activists, particularly African-American civil rights activists, would make is that local authorities know what can be done. They just refuse to do it. There are laws that could be passed right now that would limit the kinds of techniques that police can use on people on the streets, for example. There are a whole lot of things you could do to regulate police behaviour that are just not being done. Do you accept that criticism, and is that a failure of leadership at your level, at the state level?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think that's a very good question. And certainly there are best practices that can and should be employed in many different jurisdictions. The fine art of policing is something that's been distilled, and it doesn't exist in the bubble of just one city or even one state or one country or one province or district. There should be tried and true techniques where there's training involved, or where there's a general zero tolerance for certain activities. They've looked at, for example, chokeholds should be outlawed. Also, when to discharge deadly force. Why not employ some other less than deadly force than discharging a firearm, like a taser instead, or what have you. So these practices should be employed, but it begins with what's on their heart, what's in the training. That's not a predatory role that someone who dons a badge takes on, but one of service in need of securing a community from harm and mayhem. And that begins in the heart. And there's no way to second guess, regrettably, the mind of those who go into law enforcement until, regrettably, some of these problems have emerged.
But David, if that's true, the point that these activists are making is that by focusing on the fact there's looting or whatever kind of violence you're seeing from within these protests, you're actually sidestepping the main issue, which is to say that there are things that governments, state governments, could be doing right now that would help quell these protests and maybe prevent these sorts of things happening in future that are just simply not being done, and that's really where the focus should be.
Indeed. And when we get to that part of the dialogue, right now, this is with so many activities where we see clearly law enforcement. And of course, we've heard now of this instant case with the knee on the throat. But metaphorically speaking, the knee is on the throat of so many people, not only socially, but economically. It becomes a class war, a class distinction in this great country. And right now, this powder keg that's festering for many, many years, that is race-driven so often because it's easier to detect and to see where this occurs. This most instant case is not the only case. This has brought up sores that go back, wounds that have never healed, and that are constantly festering. So this little powder keg right now is not because of just one case.
We know it's late there, David, so we'll let you go, but it's been great to chat tonight. Thanks so much for your time.
It's an honour to join you this evening. Thank you.
I was watching CNN when that Minnesota police chief was interviewed live. It was almost by chance he was there. He was chatting to George Floyd's brother, and he said, George Floyd's brother wanted to know, will you charge the other? Yeah, and usually they don't answer those kinds of questions. Yeah, but he said he believes by the way they didn't do anything, they are complicit, which you just hope there's little glimmers of hope, that maybe this could be a turning point. So
can I run something by you? Normally, when there's something this divisive and controversial, you know, if you're running a big company, you stay out of it. You don't want to be involved. Something I've just noticed, I saw an article about it. Companies have started speaking up and taking a side on this. So Nike have done it, Twitter have done it. They changed their logo for a bit. Netflix have done it. Citigroup.
Saying what, though?
Ben & Jerry's, Nordstrom. They've adopted the Black Lives Matter hashtag, for example. I think Netflix tweeted that to be silent is to be complicit. What I'm interested in here is this just an evolution in marketing and the way that companies do this, or does it signal, is it a kind of leadership?
Or are they just protecting their commercial base?
No, but even if they are doing that, isn't that significant?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you'd want to be hopeful and say it is a change. Yeah. But I don't know, it's such cynicism sometimes that I don't
mean,
know. I feel like it's been decades of this. You know, it's going to
Nothing
take
ever
something more
changes.
than them just
Nothing
changing a
ever
logo
changes.
for it to change.
No, I know that. But Pricey, if you're right that it's just them looking after their sales, once upon a time that would have hurt their sales.
Yes,
That's the
right.
point, right? So I don't know. Maybe there's a change. Whether it changes the facts on the ground is a different thing, I suppose.
I think Adidas retweeted that Nike thing, so
I know.
it's changed.
Yeah, that has
Really is.
changed.
We're off to a break. More to come.